All right, welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Bruen. This week, a very special guest. We have none other than Miss Kayla Sparks. Kayla, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, guys, for listening. I'm happy to be here. Congrats again.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time today to take a little deep dive into your pro wrestling career and beyond. So looking forward to this.
Of course. Yeah, me too.
So rewinding a little bit, growing up as a kid, when did you first discover pro wrestling?
So I started watching wrestling since I was 3 years old. I know I was super young, and Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior were my favorites, of course. And ever since I've been watching it since I was 3 years old, and as a teenager, my mom brought me all the local WWE shows when they would come, and I would be so excited. And growing up, my favorites were besides Hulk Hogan was like China was a huge inspiration for me, and the Hardy Boys and Undertaker and Sting. I was a WCW girl, so I watched WCW a lot too, besides WWF. But yeah, it was a great era, attitude era to watch. Very grateful for those years. It was the best years of wrestling. But yeah, that's what I pretty much started at a young age.
Awesome. In those early days as a fan, what arenas were you attending at that time?
The local one was actually, it used to be called the Pepsi Arena. Now
Oh yeah.
it's known as the MVP Arena. So lots of history there, going to the WWE shows. And then now, flash forward, 20 something years later, and I'm being booked for, WWE extra work. So hopefully there's one coming up in November, actually, like I think next week or the following. So fingers crossed, I'm very grateful for all the opportunities I've had with WWE and AEW and everything. So
Oh man, that's awesome. I'm definitely rooting for you
yeah,
there.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
the Pepsi Arena. I mean, the Pepsi Arena is what did you say it's called now?
It's called I know it's like a local MVP arena. It's for like an insurance company that's around here in upstate New York.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar, but yeah, it's a random name, but it used to be the Pepsi Arena. I still go by that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been several times over the years when it was the Pepsi Arena. And
Really? Oh my gosh, we probably were at the same show then.
yeah, I used to go there for like Raws and different shows
Oh
there.
wow, I didn't know. You were probably at the same show. So like the one I always remember is of course the Stone Cold when he did the beer truck. That was like in 1999, I think. I was there in the nosebleeds for that.
Oh wow. I think the first time I
Yeah.
went there was probably around 2001.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that
Yeah,
was,
somewhere
yeah.
around there.
I was probably at the same. You
Nice.
probably just missed No Mercy, the pay-per-view. I was there for that too. I think that was in 2000 or 2001, back when it was so called the Pepsi Arena. That was when
Oh, okay.
Kurt Angle won his first WWE championship, which ironically enough, like if I flash forward, that's why I say there's so much history there, because recently the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, it's run by Seth Turner, who I'm really good friends with, and Kurt Angle was inducted last year, and then he got to do a tour like 20 something years later where he won his first WWF championship against The Rock, and it was at the same arena where the museum is, so it was like super special to be there for
Wow.
that.
Yeah, it was nice to be there in person for the first time because I remember watching as a
Yeah.
kid. One of the early Royal Rumbles was there, and it was called the Knickerbocker
Yes.
Arena.
Yes. Yeah. The Knickerbocker. Yep. That was when
So
Ric
like
Flair,
you
I think,
said,
won it.
a lot of
The Royal
history.
Rumble.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of history there.
Awesome. So let's talk about the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Why don't you kind of give us some of their history, where they're based out of, and obviously you've been there several times now for different events, and talk about
Yeah.
your most recent event with Trish Stratus.
I know. It's surreal for me to talk about this. So, the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, they're located in Albany, New York, in upstate where I'm from, my hometown. And the last couple of years, they've been open. Just I think in 2021 they opened. But I reached out to Seth Turner. He's the president of the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I discovered them because I watched a WWE A&E special. I think it was WWE's Most Treasured, and Lita and Trish Stratus were on it, and that's how I discovered them. Seth was on that episode, and so Sorry if you hear there's a garbage truck going by. I don't know if we want to. Is this live or can you edit
Oh, we can
it?
edit it. I don't hear it
You can
though,
edit
so
it. Okay,
you're good.
sorry. You probably could hear. I don't know if you can hear the garbage truck is loud. They usually come like earlier in the morning, but sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No.
we can. I'll answer it again. Sorry, I just didn't want
Yeah,
no
yeah.
background noise.
If you want, I can throw you the question again.
Okay, yeah, that'd probably be good.
All right, yeah.
Sorry, Joe. I didn't
No,
want
that's
I didn't
fine.
want any background noise. I'm sure you could probably edit it out, but
Yeah, yeah. I'll throw it at you again though. So yeah, the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. They're tell
yeah.
us where they're based out of, what they're all about, and your most recent happenings there with Trish Stratus.
I know it's super surreal to be able to talk about this. So the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, they've been around the last couple of years now. I think 2021 they opened, and Seth Turner, who's a really good friend of mine, he's the president. I discovered him, and I discovered the Hall of Fame was actually in my hometown, Albany, New York, on an episode of A&E's WWE Most Wanted Treasures, and Trish Stratus and Lita were on it. They were actually had an episode. I don't know if you saw it. They were wearing one of like Mae Young and Moolah's
Yeah,
like her crowd, and yeah, it was super awesome. So that's how I discovered them, and then I reached out, and then I'm super grateful for our friendship there, because the last couple of years he's had me involved, helping out. Like, I 2 years ago I got to induct June Byers, who was a pioneer in women's wrestling back in the day, and her two granddaughters, Kay Parker and Deborah, were there, and I got to give them the award for their grandmother June. So that was cool. And like, I think just recently, I don't know if you saw the Queen of the Rain movie. It was based.
yeah,
Her character was in there, which was which was awesome to have her story in there, including like Mildred Burke and Mae Young that were in the movie. Just some history background there. But yeah, so the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, last year I just got, like I was just talking about, Kurt Angle, he was inducted. I got to be there for that. And then just recently this year, I was super excited. I couldn't believe it. Seth asked me, he's like, "Hey, do you want to, you'd be perfect to talk about, Trish Stratus's accomplishments and our accolades and everything. Who better to talk about, and then, what she meant to you and what she meant to women's wrestling." So I can't wait. There's footage of that actually, so I can't wait. Check it out. It'll be posted on my YouTube social media for sure. But Trish was just, oh my gosh, she's amazing, and I actually got to meet her a few times before that. So to be there at the Hall of Fame, and then to walk down memory lane, and she was so honored and so happy that I like got to cover everything. There were things that she didn't even know about. Like, I remember there was a part where, because I did my research, I was like, I got to make sure, I'm like, Trish Stratus is in the Hall of Fame. I got to make sure I do this right. So
yeah,
there's one part where I was like, the most matches she ever had was with Victoria, which was over like 200 plus matches. She's like, wow, I didn't know that. So, but yeah, some background there, and she was just I was so honored to be there, honestly. Because Trish had a huge impact, obviously, on women's wrestling, and for me, she's definitely a great, amazing person. I'm so happy that I got to have that moment with her. And then also, which was really cool, I didn't know this was going to happen. Seth had a thumb war match between me and Trish Stratus. So there's some footage there if you want to check it out. It was super awesome. And but yeah, that what a surreal moment for me. I just felt like, it's like in a movie where you're just kind of like, you feel like everything's in slow mo, and you're just like
yeah.
kind of like out of body experience. So I felt like I was having my WrestleMania moment with Trish Stratus, even though it was so cool though. We had a lot of fun. And then I gave her flowers, because I said a note in there, like, it's give people their flowers, or give people their flowers while they're still here. And she loved that. So super honored.
Oh, great. That's great that you had that opportunity. And yeah, Trish was
Yeah.
at my New England Fan Fest a couple years
I
back, and she was
remember.
just
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
She was a class act.
She's she's so humble and super nice to her fans and everyone around her, which is rare when you think about like the entertainment industry. There's she's one of the good ones. So
And obviously, Trish is an inspiration for you as well as China,
yeah,
like you mentioned.
yeah,
What are
China.
some of your early memories of China, or your early memories of Trish?
So China for me, I just remember her before she got into DX. She was the Triple H's bodyguard, and that's where I first, I followed her since the beginning of her career. And then ever since, she was a huge inspiration for me, because she, held her own, and she was her own person. And for me, growing up in, middle school, I was bullied a lot just for being different. And I know her her story too, that she was bullied for how she looked, or you know what I mean. So I could relate to that at a young age. So China for me, she means so much to me. I actually got to meet her when I was like 12 years old when she was doing her autobiography signing for If You Only Knew, and I'll never forget how sweet she was to me. And unfortunately, I don't have any pictures for it because back then, you had disposable cameras. And
Right.
I was so excited, and so because now we have the instant gratification of having our pictures on our cell phones, you know what I mean? So like back then you had to wait and you wait for them to get developed on like CVS. So I didn't want to wait till the next day, so I went to Kmart and I asked the person that was at the photo booth, and I said, if it's a disposable camera, you're supposed to take the film out, and I didn't know I was a kid. So I ruined my pictures, but it's okay. I still have it in my heart, in my memory of that. So I'll never forget it. And but yeah, it's hard to talk about because like unfortunately, she's not here with us anymore. And I still think about her a lot and how much she inspired me. And and it's just really sad, what happened. And but she's still talked about to this day and forever, her impact that she made on not just women's wrestling, like just in general. Like she was able to wrestle the guys and the girls, and no one else had done that before her. So she's just always holds a special place in my heart. So
Yeah, she definitely kind of set the bar, and
yeah,
it was groundbreaking, like you said. So,
yeah,
big part of pro wrestling, and it's great to just remember her in a conversation like this and keep her name
yeah,
alive, for
yeah, for
sure. And
sure, always, yeah.
finally got that shot with the WWE Hall of Fame. Look great to see her go in there. And yeah,
Individually, yeah, I hope so one day. Yeah, she
yeah,
deserves it. I mean, yeah, she absolutely. So,
she made big enough impact to certainly warrant that. So
oh yeah, of course, yeah, for sure.
now rewinding a little bit, how did you first step foot into the wrestling world? Where was your training? Stuff like that.
So back then in 2002, I was 13 years old and I discovered there was a local pro wrestling school called 24/7 Wrestling. And they were on the news and they were advertising, like, hey, do you want to be a pro wrestler? And as soon as I saw it, I watched it in the morning news with my mom, and I'm like, I was like, oh my God, I have to sign up. Like, there's no question about it. And back then, I guess it was different because nowadays, I don't think they would allow, like, 13, like underage,
Yeah.
to sign up for pro wrestling. So back then, I guess it was different at different time. But fortunately for me, I got to learn at a young age. So, it was a lot of pushback though from my parents, obviously, because they didn't want me to get hurt because I was young too. So, but I like I've always been a go getter at a young age. So, I begged and begged my mom to join, and she came with me to every practice so that she would know I was safe. But I was like China. I felt like I could hold my own, and she inspired me so much. I was the only female student in the school, the youngest, obviously, and they treated me like family, and that's what I'll always be so appreciative of. Is that it was a good learning environment for me to learn the ropes, take my first bumps, and a couple months later, I had my first match. I'll never forget. It was a lumberjack match, and everyone that was in the school there were surrounding the ring, and it was bittersweet for me to have that, like everyone there that supported me and stuff. So good memories, like and then a couple years later, actually 2 or 3 years later, I think when I was 15, I started to branch out more, and I got like I said, I was a go getter, so I signed up. I got my working papers to get one of my first jobs was like at Sears. I don't know if anyone remembers that watching it.
Yeah.
Sears back in the day was my first job, and so I could afford gas and toll money and to actually get my first set of gear, so I saved up enough to support my dreams, and because obviously I couldn't drive yet. So my mom, it was the road trips for me that were super um fun and memorable, like all the car karaoke and stuff with my mom and stuff. So super grateful that my mom could support me at a young age. And I got to travel all over like the Northeast and even Canada. So very fortunate that I got to have that experience at a young age. And of course, you run into some, like any other sport or whatever, you run into some weirdos, I guess, in the locker room. But I have some funny stories about that I could probably share. But yeah, it was, for the most part, it was memorable, like good positive memories for me, besides getting hurt towards the end.
And one of my next questions was, how did you come up with the gimmick, the Spice Ranger? Kind of tell us how that
Yeah.
transpired, and also your look as
Yeah.
well. Designing
I know
your
you got I
your
see I got
stuff.
my Spice World shirt. You see I got the Spice Girls shirt repping
Yeah,
today. Spice Ranger for me, I honestly I feel like I got some help with my cousin because I was trying to think of like what's a good nickname for me when I came back after my 14-year hiatus, which is a long story. 14 years later, I came back in 2021, the summer of 2021, and I said, I had to think of like what's a good nickname. So I was like, what's something special I can make, about myself. So Spice Ranger, it's my love for Spice Girls and Power Rangers. I grew up a 90s kid, so it was just natural for me to like kind of hone into that. And I guess it's just kind of like a hyper, like, confident me. I guess Kayla Sparks, the Spice Ranger, is just someone who has so much positivity and wants to like kick butt and, so that's where that came from.
awesome. And walk us through like the process of designing your outfits, because you have some really cool outfits. Just kind of tell us how
Yeah.
the designs came about, and what
Yeah.
inspired you to do certain different things.
So when I was younger, when you're first starting out was 2002, and that was, of course, I mentioned like Matt and Jeff Hardy were my one of my big inspirations. So originally, my gear was just, most indie wrestlers probably shot that Hot Topic, and they got, I had the Hardy Boy pants, and I have pictures and stuff I can share and video footage, but yeah, it was just like nothing really there. But then, I got my first set of gear. Probably when I was like 15 or 16, and that was pink and black, of course. Those are my favorite colors. And it was just kind of like with Kayla Sparks, I made my own, I designed my own logo, with a star and like the spark off of it. So I kept that. Years later, I actually got a new set of gear, in 2021, which also was inspired by, me coming out in my 20s. And I came out, after I was gone from wrestling. So for me, that was important to have like the rainbow pride on my gear and stuff. So that I, added to my gear that I have now. So yeah.
Nice. And then,
Yeah.
of course, when it comes to, I guess we'll just kind of throw a random question at you. Favorite announcer of all time? So this could be any era, any on the indies, or it could be on television. Favorite announcer, commentator, ring announcer.
There's so many. Well, I would say Lillian Garcia because she was in the Attitude Era, but as of late, one of my dear friends is Samantha. I would say she for her because she just has so much passion and so much energy, and she makes entrances memorable. So for me, it's her just because she's an awesome person. And actually, just recently, I was really grateful for the experience. I got to work with her in Las Vegas, which was a huge accomplishment for me. She was used her singing abilities, which she's an amazing singer, and she got to be the referee. I don't know if you've heard of it, the last match experience. It was
No.
really awesome. Jeremiah is one of the lead producers for that, and he invited me to come to Las Vegas to perform because I had previously been on tour with them a few dates the year prior to that, and like up in Vermont and actually in my hometown in Albany. Sorry if I'm going off, but yeah, Samantha, I got to work with her just this April. It was during WrestleMania weekend, of course, when they were in Las
Oh, wow.
Vegas. So that was a huge accomplishment. And I got to, bring my mom full circle because, like I was saying, my mom came with me to all the shows and road trips and stuff. So it was full circle to have her there to see me perform. And, no big deal. My friend Medusa was there sitting with my mom, and I was just having, for me, it's all about those little things for me that make me feel like just super happy and just super grateful for all the experiences I've had because little me would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening.
Right.
So but yeah.
That's great that you've been able to experience that with your mom. That's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, when it comes to workout routine, obviously you're busy, you're all over the place. How do you fit it
Yeah.
in? What is your workout routine exactly?
So luckily I'm able to go, work out. My schedule isn't as busy as it was. Like when I first came back to wrestling, I was like traveling all the time. I was like with WWE and AEW, but now since it's kind of like toned down a little bit, for now, I've been just, working out when I can, and a lot of cardio, a lot of like weightlifting, nothing too crazy. But I do want to start like it's funny you mentioned that because I did work with Caesar for a little bit last year. He was helping me a lot. He's really good with like dieting and making sure like you're getting the right nutrition, the right, a lot of it is mental, like the physical, like it's not so
Yeah.
much the physical part, yeah, but it's a lot of like because even when you're not motivated, a lot of the times, you just gotta have discipline and be able to have a goal and then make sure you set your realistic goals and then yeah. So for me, I'm trying to work on that more, so in the next couple months. Well, now that, so I just announced recently that I have to get foot surgery for an old injury, which sucks because, you try to avoid surgery if you can. Well, for me, I guess, being a pro wrestler, we have a high pain tolerance. So my foot hasn't been able to bend the last like 20 years almost because it was
Wow.
from an old injury when I was like 18 or 19. Stuff happens and I just never, I think it got really bad arthritis. So I can't bend my foot. I can walk and stuff, it's fine, but I can't like, if I want to wear heels or something, I can not that I wear heels often, but like if I go to an event, I literally can't wear them. So like I'm hoping that after the surgery, they said recovery time's like 3 to 6 months. So we'll see. And then I'll be back, because like I said, I'm a go-getter, so it's only temporary setback and it's always about the comeback. So
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
looking
Stay
forward to
positive.
the comeback. Yeah, thank you.
Well, we look forward to the comeback and, coming back
Thank
full
you.
force.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. So now another question I had, top 3 matches of all time, and, this is
Yeah.
just your personal preference, matches that you have witnessed, but not matches that you were in.
Yeah. Wow. So let me think. Obviously, like China, her matches, I would say the Intercontinental Championship she had with Jeff Jarrett was one of my favorites just because of, women were in men's matches, let alone holding a men's title at the time. So that was always a memorable match for me, like watching that
Sure.
as a kid. Of course, Sting versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan was one of my favorite matches at Starcade '97. Just because I was a kid and I loved Sting and I dressed up as Sting, as a kid, like a lot of like, kids probably did, but it was rare for a girl, to like wrestling. So that was actually the reason why I was bullied a lot in school. Nowadays it's like it's cool if you watch wrestling. It's like back then it was like if you watched it, it wasn't that cool. So I got picked on a lot for it, which it helped me build thick skin. You know what I mean? So like I dressed up as Sting for Halloween in like fifth grade, and actually full circle moment. I got to meet Sting back in like my first time I met him was in 2019, and I'll never forget. It was at a local mall here, and I dressed up. He was the Wolfpack Sting, and I had the red,
Oh, yeah.
red and black face paint. And his, I thought it was a joke at first, but his bodyguard. This is before I came back to wrestling, like 2 years before, and his bodyguard or his security came up to me. He's like, you know what? You did his face paint just as good as Sting did. I told him about you. And he's like, you're gonna be on his social media, live talking about it. So I was like, oh wow, I didn't think it was serious. And then of course when I got to meet Sting, he had the camera ready and he like it's on his Instagram. There's a video of me and him interacting, and I was just so like, so excited to finally meet him. And then I showed him, I was like, it's you for Halloween, it just came natural to do your face paint. And then full circle moment, when I came back to wrestling, I started wrestling for AEW. There's Sting, you know what I mean, backstage. So he remembered me, and then I had that moment with him where I took a picture, and I was like, "This is surreal that I watched you as a kid, and now I'm sharing the same ring as like your childhood hero." So for me,
Right.
that's like that's that's my like you made it, Michaela. You should be really proud of yourself, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
so I'll
Excellent.
never forget that. But yeah, Sting and Hollywood Hulk Hogan, that was a great match because that buildup was like over a year long. You know what I mean? And versus NWO, I'll never forget it. Um, and then third match would probably be. There's so many matches. I know you're putting me on the spot. I'm like, um, let's see. Well, Undertaker probably. Let me see. I'm trying to think which match. I mean, obviously the one versus him and McFoley. I mean, who can forget, the Hell in a Cell?
Oh, yeah.
Watching that as a kid because I used to have his VHS tape, Phenom, and I used to watch that all the time, and I just loved, everything about Undertaker. I was Undertaker too for Halloween, but yeah, that match, obviously it was crazy match. We'll never probably never see a match like that again, and
No.
props to McFoley for continuing the match after, everything that he went through, you know what I mean? But that was a great storyline with them too. So those are my top three for now.
Yeah, it could change over time, but those are three great
I know.
selections. So,
Yeah.
so when it comes to matches like that, where you see the hardcore wrestling and more of the extreme stuff, have you ever been a part of that, or are you just keeping it technical?
I just kept for me because I just kept it technical, ring wrestling. I
Yeah,
was taught the old school way, but if there was ever a match where, there were tables and chairs, which I don't think there's really. I mean, as far as like chairs, like back in the day, they used to allow chair shots to the head. They don't allow it anymore. So but if there was ever a match, I would, I wouldn't say no, so because I grew up, like I said, Hardy Boys, TLC matches and all that, I enjoy watching, but to be in it, hey, you never know. So I've never been in any of those so far.
and like me, you grew up basically a WCW and a WWF fan.
Yeah.
So how did you handle the Monday Night Wars? Did you watch? Were you flipping
Oh
back
my
and
gosh.
forth?
Well, probably like you remember you had to like I felt like I was like betraying one or the other if I like kept the channel on too long. But I will say though, WCW was beating WWF ratings for a little bit there from like I remember it was the best to watch from like 1995 to 1998. And then 1998, I feel like and on, I was watching more like WWF, of course,
Yeah.
but they had obviously, with NWO and all the lucha. I loved watching like Rey Mysterio and Psychosis and all like Juventud Carrera. Like I loved watching all the lucha
Yeah.
guys, and it was fun to watch because it was more, about the wrestling WCW, and then obviously WWE is like the wrestling too, but entertainment, definitely,
Yeah. And on a local venues, basically on a local front, you've traveled all over. What are some of your favorite venues to wrestle in?
Um, I would say I know now that I've been able to add like stadiums to my repertoire, I guess, which is surreal. Um, I'll never forget like when I came back to wrestling after 14-year hiatus. Thunder Rosa invited me to go be her opponent for the Arthur Ashe Stadium. I'll never forget that. That's really special for me because that was the first AEW Grand Slam event. It was September 2021, and I just remember I was having that surreal moment because I never, like I said, I've always wrestled in front of local, gyms, high school gyms, or where my school was 24/7 wrestling. There was no heat in the winter. They couldn't afford, you know what I mean? There was like five people in the crowd. They were probably friends and family anyway.
Right.
So wrestling in front, going from that and then, wrestling in front of 20,000 people at Arthur Ashe Stadium is surreal for me. Uh, and then of course my other big accomplishment was getting to wrestle on WWE Raw back in August 2022. That was in Pittsburgh at the PPG Arena, so that one really holds a special place in my heart. A lot, like a lot. There's so many like that I could list, but that one for me was a big one because obviously that's like my your bucket list wrestle on Monday Night Raw, and so Bianca
Absolutely.
Belair, who was the current women's champion at the time, and Alexa Bliss and Asuka, who were three of them were like, no big deal, like one of the biggest like female superstars of the last like decade or so. So it was surreal. It was a moment for me.
And you mentioned Thunder Rosa for AEW.
Yeah.
You've also worked with Athena, you've worked with Serena
Yes.
Deeb, Nyla
Yes. Yeah.
Rose,
They're all
uh,
great.
Mercedes Martinez.
Yes.
What kind of feedback do you have on those different opponents while you were there in AEW?
I mean, I had such a great run over there. I mean, you mentioned Athena. She was great to be in the ring with. I actually had more ring time with her, which was awesome to have, and she was great to work with. Thunder Rosa. That was my first match there at AEW, my debut. So, and even though they don't give you a lot of time, you know what I mean, because you're an extra, but it's still like I just soaked up as much like time and like it was all about the experience for me and like and to be able to get in the ring and share the ring with some awesome, amazing women wrestlers. So, but yeah, you mentioned Mercedes Martinez, who was actually back in the day. So in the early 2000s, she was one of my mentors because, obviously she has such a great in ring ability and she definitely knows how to work the mic too. And I actually had a match with her, forget what year, it had to be like '05 maybe. And it was a three-way match between her and Cindy Rogers. She was another female talent at the time. But never got to have that match yet. Hopefully before she retires, I can have that match with Mercedes. But yeah, she was always a mentor for me in the locker room, like really good locker room leader. Um, she just always had her head on straight, and just like she always had good feedback, or feedback to give to the other female wrestlers. So that's what I always remembered about her. And she's one of my good friends. But trying to think, yeah. And then of course, my match with um, Britt Baker that was on Dynamite. That was a short match, but like I said, it was awesome to be able to get in the ring with her. And Tony Storm, I had a match with her too. So like the list goes on, but I've had awesome experiences at AEW, and super grateful for them. And Tony Khan always invited me back, and I've always had like positive experiences there. So
Yeah, what was Tony like behind the scenes?
he was very nice. You know what I mean? I always shook his hand. He always like you know seemed happy. You know what I mean? So I've always had good experiences with him.
And you teamed up with Little Bean Kathleen. You took on Tony Storm,
Yes,
Mariah May.
yes, Tony Storm and Ryan May. Yeah, that was a fun match. Not getting hit with their the moves in the turnbuckle. And yeah, it was definitely awesome experiences I've had with them.
Now you've seen both sides of it now, AEW, WWE, you've experienced it.
Yeah,
What are the differences between the 2 companies as far as the atmosphere backstage, leading
yeah.
up to the show itself? What's it like back there?
I would say, from being working with both companies, I would say, both of them. Obviously, WWE's been around a lot longer, so AEW has been doing a great job. I think as far as like the locker room is really good to work with, and being around for a couple years now. But I've always had positive experiences there, and WWE, of course, like I've been doing extra work with them since 2022, and for me, it's like going there, it's like a reunion every time. It's like a family now, because now that I got to know everyone um, backstage. And I think they obviously, like, WWE is not going around, or it's not leaving anytime soon. So they know how to put on a good production. They got um, all their stuff together. So, but yeah, I've enjoyed working for both. But obviously, like WWE's been my dream since I was a kid. So, knock on wood that I continue that dream wherever it may lead me. Whether it's WWE or I'm grateful, like I said, for everything that I've gotten so far. Like I got to also experience a WrestleMania moment, which was I was one of the Askas, the extras for her entrance when they were in. That was my first time in California and Hollywood, so I'll never
Wow.
forget that. That was they only picked like four of the extras to do that, so I'll never forget that. That was like surreal. I had a WrestleMania moment, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was so cool. And Asuka's, it was like a reunion because I had the match with her, and so when I see her too backstage, she always remembers me and gives me hugs. So it's cool that like everyone remembers me, and like um treats makes me feel like family there. So hopefully it's only a matter of time. We'll see. Fingers crossed, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Never say never.
absolutely. Now you've experienced so many positive experiences throughout your career.
Yeah.
If you could only pick one, what is your favorite or most memorable experience, whether it be independence, WWE, AEW, just that one moment that was really special to
Wow.
you?
Oh man. There's so, you know what I mean? Like I just mentioned all these like special moments. So I'll mention
Right.
one that I haven't mentioned yet, which was when I came back, after my 14-year hiatus. My first match back was at Beyond Wrestling. Um, and that was in July 2021, and I'll never forget it because on my way to the show, I've never had this happen to me before. And again, knock on wood, but a drunk driver actually hit me on the way there on the Mass Pike, and I couldn't avoid him. And then he hit me again, and I was like literally this close to hitting the guardrail. And I remember that was my near life death experience. Like
Oh my
I
gosh.
almost died, and the only thing that was going through my head was, "Oh my gosh, I have to get back. I have to get to my match. I can't miss this." So that was a moment I'll never forget because I almost had a near death experience, and luckily I was okay. Like my car was like my car was okay, I guess, to drive because I still had like an hour and a half to get to Worcester. And, and then I remember the state trooper made me laugh at the end because I told him, well, like, is there? I'm like, oh, my wheel is kind of like falling off. I'm like, but my car's okay to drive still to get there. And he's like, yeah, yeah, it's okay. You just gotta, be careful. And I remember he had me autograph the back of the police report. He's like, you're a wrestler. He's like, I love wrestling. He's like, good luck at your first match back. He's like, can I get your autograph? So for me, I'll
Wow.
never forget that, which is so funny from a negative experience and turned it into a positive one. So when I get there, I remember I got there and everyone was so worried about me, like, are you okay? Are you okay to have a match? And I'm like, it gave me more adrenaline, you know what I mean? So like get in the ring and I'll never forget like the crowd that was there and listening to my theme music I've used forever, which is Volcano Girls by Veruca Salt. I don't know if you met, they're a female band from the 90s. I love them.
Yeah.
Which ironically enough, full circle moment, I got to see one of the lead singers. Her name's Louise Post, and I got to see her a couple years ago. Um, and she was doing a solo concert, and I got to meet her and tell her my story and how much I love their music and how I've been coming out to Volcano Girls forever, and she loved it. So now we're friends, no big deal. And but yeah, so it was surreal, and I used my old gear that I had to still fit me when I was like 16, and I wore it again. So that's a moment I'll never forget. And then also, I remember like at the end of the match, even though I lost, you know what I mean. Wins and losses don't matter, but the crowd gave me like a standing ovation. They're like, "You still got it," you know what I mean. So like for that, that was super special for me to hear that. And then my cousin April, who's been a big supporter of me, she surprised me and traveled, all the way to it was like 2.5 hours away from home. She surprised me there. So there's like a footage of me like hugging her in the crowd, and she had they had a Kayla Sparks sign she made, her and my little cousin Bella, like, "You still got it." So that was for me, that moment I'll always remember because it was just surreal coming back after 14 years. Because you go through, that's a long time to be away from the ring. So you have a lot of doubts in your mind, like, can I still do it? And so the
Yeah.
fans loved it, and I'll never forget that. So
Wow. And tell us a little bit more about your WWE experience now. What
yeah.
were some of the different skits that you did there and, the match that you had on Raw?
So before my match on Raw, I'll backtrack. My first WWE experience was a huge one because my first time working for WWE for extra work. I'm sure you'll remember it. A lot of people come up to me till this day, and it's surreal for me. But I'm the only person that has ever been on WWE and AEW on the same night. So that
Right.
was WWE SmackDown. It was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and that was on a Friday because they filmed theirs live. And that was for a Kiss Cam with the Los Lotharios, who they're absolutely amazing. But before that, that Wednesday, they had a taping for Rampage, which I had a match with Serena Deeb. I think it was like the 5 minute Professor Challenge, which again, I love wrestling Serena. She's awesome. She's actually a good friend of mine, and that was awesome to be able to wrestle her for the first time. So they filmed it. It was gonna air live on Friday. So SmackDown was first, 8 p.m. I did the Kiss Cam, and then the following, AEW Rampage, they had the match with Serena, and I remember my phone just like going off that night, and the next day, like Fightful had all this stuff, and like people were like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe it? She did WWE and AEW on the same night," which she's like, she pulled a Rick Rude, back in the day when he did the Nitro and Raw um, event. So that was surreal, just being compared to a legend like Rick Rude. But yeah, I'll never forget that.
Now, who were some of the agents over the years that were assigned to your WWE matches or skits and your
Yeah.
AEW matches?
Oh my gosh. So I can go down. So there's been so many. I mean, for a little bit, Pat Buck was working for WWE at the time. I think he's in AEW now still. But he was great to work with. And my first segments I got to do was if you remember the storyline with Dana Brooke, and it was for the Bachelorette segment I was in first. That was like a backstage segment we did, and our Truth was there, who I absolutely love. He was also he's so funny. He was in the segment during that, and then following that event in Buffalo, New York, at the Key Bank Center, they had a wedding ceremony I got to be in. So that was fun to be there. And I'll never forget it because I remember it was Dana. Like they were like joking around, like swapping each other's, like, it's all for the storyline. But Dana Brooke and was had this like segment where they were like pretending they were like in a lesbian or whatever marriage, and then you see me like front and center, and I was pointing at my pride tattoo. So for me, that was a moment. I was like, oh my gosh, like here I am, because you never see that on WWE television. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um, they usually like joke around about it. So that'd be cool if there's ever a storyline like same sex, whatever. But who knows? It's this day and age. It's like accepting now. So hopefully
Yeah.
one day. But yeah, that those moments I'll never forget. There's been more. I'm just trying to like emphasize like Raw, the WrestleMania moment. There's been trying to think. There's like other ones where they were like small. Like recently, I got to be a medical person for when Sami Zayn got hurt his ribs, so I came out. Whatever they want me to do, I'm always available. So I'm just super call me back all the time. You know what I mean? So, but
Sure.
as far as like agents, when I had my match on Raw, that was actually a full circle. Oh wait, sorry, my
Oh,
phone
that's okay.
dropped. Oh, sorry, they could probably edit. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
um, sorry, you want me to continue? Sorry, I feel bad.
Yeah, you can pick up right where you left
Sorry,
off and on.
Joe.
No
Okay.
problem.
So going back, like talking about the agents, Nora Molly Holly was one of the agents for my match on Raw. So, and she's absolutely amazing. Like she knows. Like growing up, obviously, I was a huge fan, and like I even would practice her moves. Like when she do the Molly go around and the her swinging like arm drag. No one's ever done that. So I just
Yeah.
remember like telling her like how surreal, awesome it was to have her, agent our match, which was awesome. And I see her all the time there. She's done so much for WWE, and I'm happy that she's backstage. Shane Helms too. He's another one. Awesome agent. Trying to think. Yeah. So it's just been very awesome to be able to work with everyone, all the different agents. Trying to think of it. There's like, yeah.
Awesome. And a two-part question for you. A dream
Yeah.
match for you. What would a dream match for you be on television and a dream match on the independent scene if you could pick an opponent for each?
Okay. Dream match. Well, obviously, I'm a huge fan of Rhea Ripley, so that would be a dream match to be able to work with her. She's awesome. I've met her so many times, and she's killing it right now. Like, there's no like male or female. She gets compared a lot to like China because of her, in ring presence and stuff, and how she can,
Sure.
connect with the fans and everything. So that would be an awesome match to have with her. WWE, never say never. Uh, as far as indie wrestling, a dream match would be. Oh man, there's so many like female awesome talent out there. Um, um, I mean, Mercedes Martinez, I kind of mentioned that because we haven't really had a solo match together. So that would be a dream match to have with her, a one-on-one, in the indies before she retires, before I retire, you know what I mean? Which won't be for a while, but that would be
Right.
an awesome match to have with her.
And any road stories or funny stories over the years throughout your career? I know you said you had some
I did,
interesting
yeah.
backstage
From back then, yeah.
weirdo
So I was
incidents.
saving that for the so younger, obviously I was underage, and even though I had a lot of support, people around me and stuff, sometimes you run into one or two bad apples. You know what I mean? So funny story was I was backstage. I forget what promotion it was, but I remember I was walking backstage, and some guy came up to me, and I thought he was joking around at first, but he's like, "Hey, babe, can you oil my back?" And he said it loud enough for other people could hear. And I was just like, that was my first time wrestling there, so I wanted to make a good impression. Obviously, I wasn't going to do it, but like I felt so uncomfortable, so I was like, And then I remember there was someone that said like, yeah, Kayla, don't do that. That's so disrespectful, or so, right? So, I was just like taken back by it. I was like, what? I was like, I couldn't believe it. So then I remember like later on, someone told the promoter, and I just remember the promoter said, everyone, please get out of the locker room except for so and so. It was the guy that said something I'll never forget. Like I almost felt bad for him because like I mean, you know he's like, I just remember the promoter was like screaming at him, and he's like, you wouldn't be saying that if it was your daughter, or your wife, or your sister. You know what I mean? So like, you apologize to Kayla. That was so disrespectful. You know what I mean? And I'll never forget. I guess it's kind of funny, but it's like, one of those stories I have like backstage that happened to me like personally that. But yeah, I mean, there's so many road stories and stuff too that I've had that were funny, but that one sticks out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that, you shouldn't do, and
Yeah,
that's definitely on the
I
list,
know.
so
Right, exactly. I'm sorry if he's watching this now, I doubt it, but, I'm sure he probably won't forget it either.
yeah. Now the independent scene, what are the different promotions that you work for over the years? Do you any come to mind that you remember?
Yeah, so, I worked for a couple of them. So when I came back to wrestling, 14 years later, I've worked for, there's World of Hurt Wrestling, which they're in upstate New York. Another one is Immortal Championship Wrestling. That was where I held their women's championship for a long time, for like over 450 plus days or something like that. That's awesome for a comeback. So I held it twice there. And I worked for Capital Championship Wrestling. I was their first ever Title Match Network champion. I don't think they're around anymore, but that was pretty cool, awesome accomplishment. And there was, a lot of female talent. Of course, I got to work with there, and yeah, and then of course Mission Pro Wrestling. I got to go to Texas to go wrestle for Thunder Rosa's. That's her company there, which was awesome. And then trying to think, there was other back in the day, I got to travel and go to different promotions. I don't even know if they're worth mentioning because I don't even think they're around anymore. But one that sticks out was, because it was in Somerville, Massachusetts, was World Women's Wrestling. Sheldon was the promoter, so I actually got to see
Alright.
him at when I was at your fan fest. That was my first time seeing him after, I don't know, 20 years later. So
Wow.
I'll never forget. Yeah, he was the NECW promoter as well. But I got to work for him so many times back, when I was a teenager. So it was awesome to see him. We took a picture to catch up and stuff, and it was awesome to see him because I don't know if he gets the credit that he deserves, but there was a lot of female talent back then. That's where I got to work with Mercedes Martinez, and there's so many other, female talent. And, besides like Shimmer, obviously, that was around. Unfortunately, I didn't get to work with them because that was when I just got unfortunately, I just got my second severe concussion, which caused me to be out for a long time. And that was when they were really hot at the time. So I missed my chance there, which would have been awesome because so many girls that were in WWE came from there, Bailey and stuff like that. So it would have been cool to work for them. But very grateful for those opportunities back then, and to have that moment with Sheldon recently, at your fan fest was cool. Which, by the way, that was awesome. Thank you again for reminding me for that. I brought my mom. I'm sure you remember
Oh, yeah.
because that was
No,
her like seeing the full circle. You know what I mean? So thanks again. That was so much fun, Joe.
absolutely, it was a pleasure to have you there, and a lot of the fans
Thank
were
you.
excited that you were there, so,
Yeah, Nia
yeah,
Jackson, I think, was at that one too. That was where we met.
that's right.
Before she came back to WWE, I saw her in the bathroom. I'm like, she's like, so that was around that time before she came back. So that was cool to see her.
And Sheldon Goldberg, he's an accomplished author now, he's got
Yes.
4 books
Yeah.
out,
Yeah, I
and,
know. Congrats to him. That's awesome. I'm so happy for him.
yeah, I just picked up all 4 of them, so I'm gonna dive into those
Wow.
soon, and looking forward
Yeah,
to
I'll have to
that.
check him out.
Yeah, definitely. Now you said you looked up to Trish over the years, you looked up to China. You gotta figure
Yeah.
there are little girls out there that look up to you that have seen you do
Oh,
your
yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
what advice, number 1, what advice do you have to somebody that's looking to get into the business? And what do you have to say to the young fans that are, looking
Yeah.
up to you?
Well, first off, still, it's surreal for me when little girls or little boys come up to me at the shows because that was what I really loved about it. Like coming back after 14 years as an adult and being able to inspire, or make their day. Like that always made my day when I would see the kids, come up to me at my table or come up to me after the match and give me hugs and stuff. Um, Anyone watching this that aspires to be a pro wrestler, there's so many more opportunities now than there were back then. So I would say, do your research, make sure you're going to a reputable school, wrestling school, and check out the place and the trainers, see what experience they have, their resume and all that. And because there are some, shady shady wrestling schools that just want make a buck or whatever, but there are really good ones out there. Just got to do your research. And I will say it's if your first couple of bumps are tough, but if it's something that you really love and that you're passionate about, go for it. And you know, like I said, there's so many opportunities now because social media, that wasn't a thing back then. I remember I used to, like I said, I was a go getter back then. I had my website, I made my own website back then, and I had my VHS tapes that I would sell. So that was like what you did back then before social media. But now, thank God for social media and everything now. It's so much easier now to get your name there and stuff. So yeah.
And what would you say is the most challenging part of being a pro wrestler?
Oh, I was saying before about going to the gym, it's definitely a mental thing. Like there's days where, you know, uh obviously like we're all human. So like there's days like for me, I kind of took a little break recently and a lot of it is mental and stuff. So, coming back, I mean, like I said, I've accomplished so much. So I always have to remind myself, like, you've done so much that little you would be so proud of you. So give yourself some credit and stuff. And because like back in the day I used to deal with, I still kind of do like depression and stuff like that. I know a lot of people do and stuff. So but it's always good to remind yourself like all the things that you've accomplished that little you would be proud of. So I always try to tell myself that there's still like I've accomplished so much, but there's still so much more to go. So after this surgery I have, I'm hoping to like have another third comeback. You know what I mean? Because I had my my injury back when I was like 18 or 19, the concussion, which was really scary. And yeah, I remember I was still on my gear when I had to go to the emergency room, and luckily my mom was there and she was able to help me bring me to the emergency room, which was scary. And then I wanted to come back sooner, but I don't know if you've ever had a concussion or know anyone that had a concussion, but you get the side effects like vertigo, and that's what offset me for a long time because that was scary because that would it would come and go for a couple years, and it would be I struggled a lot with that depression because I couldn't wrestle, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
coming out of it, when I came back in 2021, it was just like so busy for me. And then like, the last year or so it hasn't been as busy, but I've still done, like I mentioned like the last match musical, which was super fun to go to Las Vegas and then go on tour with them. The year prior, I got to work with Mickey James, so that was like so surreal. You know what I mean? To be able to work with her, and she played the mother. I don't know if you saw clips from it, but it was
No.
or checked it out. But she was it was funny because she got to use her singing voice and stuff like that. So
Oh, wow.
um, yeah, it was super cool. And then she was actually there in the audience in Las Vegas, which was really special to me. Because it was, it was around WrestleMania weekend, so she was there. Eric Bischoff was in the crowd too, randomly, no big deal. So that was it's actually funny because like I have my mom, I guess, had a crush on him back in the day. I didn't even know my mom had a crush on him.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I'm like, Mom, you gotta get a picture with him. So of course I did the NWO one with him. And I had him take a picture with my mom. And I was like, hey Ma, do your the NWO. And then Eric is like, no, 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 I got a better one. And he grabs my mom and kisses her on the cheek. There's a picture of it. But I laugh. There's another funny story. But yeah, just surreal. I've had all these experiences and there's still so much more to come. I actually have something coming up. I haven't announced anything yet, but I'll say it here. It's an exclusive. So
Oh,
all the
awesome.
things that we talked about is just like a little bit, but it's been a long dream of mine I'm working on producing a docu-series that's going to be about my story.
Oh,
So we already started filming for it. And then hopefully we're hoping to get it streamed on Netflix. That would be pretty cool, right? So
congratulations on
watch
that.
out for that. Yeah. So it's just going to be about my whole journey. You know what I mean? From when we were just talking about from when I was young and then now, maybe, the third comeback. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's all good things to look forward to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like you said, you've had a couple setbacks over the years, but you've always come
Yeah.
back and
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
nothing will be different this time. So
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Joe.
yeah, we're ready and we'll support you, of course, here at
Oh, thank
All
you.
Access Entertainment, without a doubt.
That means a lot. Thanks, Joe.
So as we wind down here, the Mount Rushmore of women's wrestling, who would you put up there for
Oh
best
my
to
God.
do it of all time?
All right. Well, China first, of course. Second would be, oh man, three more. I would say it's a tie between like Mildred Burke and Mae Young, just because they've been around, from the beginning. And if you watch, you should definitely check out. Have you seen Queen of the Ring, the movie?
Yes. Yep.
That they did a really great job with that. So I'm gonna put I'm gonna say Mae Young. I actually got to meet Mae Young when she got inducted into the Hall of Fame in Albany in like 2003. I got to take a picture with her and Mula, so I'll never forget that moment. There was a couple other legends I got to meet too that day. It was like Killer Kowalski, no big deal. He trained
Wow.
China and sorry, going off topic, but talking about Killer Kowalski, I've got to train with one of the students who actually got to train with China and Triple H when they all were training at the same time. His name is Mike Hollow, and he has
Oh
a
yeah.
school called Elite. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar. Elite Training Center. So I got to work with him, train with him and Scott Reed. So they've been great, and now I'm super excited for them because now they're a part of the WWID program. So I'll definitely be seeing them more. Once after my surgery and stuff, I'll be going back there to train again. It's just a little hype for me, but us wrestlers, we don't mind driving and stuff. I just wish
Right.
it was closer, but it is what it is. But yeah, going back to the Mount Rushmore, so I would say Mae Young, China, and for me personally, everyone's Mount Rushmore is different, but Molly Holly, just because I loved watching her grow up and she's technical and you know what I mean.
Yep.
Um, Fourth one, you know what? I'm gonna say Charlotte, just because she's accomplished so much, and obviously Ric Flair's daughter, but she's more than that. Like she knows how to put like whenever she's on the card, it's gonna be a great match, no matter. Like one off the top of my head is her and Rhea Ripley. You know what I mean at WrestleMania, which I was there for that. That was when I did the Asuka entrance for that, so I'll never forget. That match was awesome. It was like literally out of all the male and females, they literally had a standing ovation for that one that people still talk about to this day. So that's my Mount Rushmore. So China Mae Young, Molly Holly, and Charlotte.
Sweet. Yeah, it's tough to match the in-ring
I know.
skills of Charlotte Flair. I mean, my goodness.
I know.
Yeah, like you said, always a main
I love
event
her.
feel
She's
with her.
awesome.
And you
Yeah.
mentioned Mike Hollow. He's a friend of the show here. Mike Hollow,
Yeah, he
a
is.
member of
Yep.
the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I've known him for many years, and it doesn't get any better
Oh
than Mike
wow.
Hollow when
See?
it comes to trainers.
I fi- yeah, I figured, yeah, because he's awesome though to work with. I got to work with him a lot, and whenever there's like seminars there, Gabe Sapolsky, he's the WWE scout. He's one of my main contacts there, and it's cool whenever he would have seminars at his school. I would go to. So yeah, Mike knows his stuff. He's an awesome guy. So if you're watching this, Mike's he knows. I always tell him something like all the time, like I thank him for everything because it's all about the little things with him. That's why he's such a great teacher, great mentor because he really hones in on because it is all about the little things when you think about it. It makes it makes you better as like not just like a wrestler, but like outside of wrestling. He's just a great teacher.
Yeah, good Mike Hollow memory for me. He used to wrestle as Mike DiBiase for a short period of time.
Oh, really?
And I did a
Yeah.
backstage interview with him because I had a wrestling talk show for Cox Cable at the time. So this would have been
Oh, okay.
1998, and
Wow.
just
Yeah.
did a quick interview with him. And MTV happened to be there, and it ended
Oh,
up being
wow.
that MTV special that was on, all about pro wrestling, and it was kind of a documentary
Yeah.
type of thing. So
Oh,
that was a
wow.
cool
That's
thing to
so
be a
cool. I
part
didn't know
of.
that.
And then fast
Yeah.
forward a couple more years later, 99, 2000, I interviewed Mike at Killer Kowalski's school.
Wow.
And,
See?
yeah, Mike was the head trainer there, and he just kinda took a break
Wow.
for about a half hour. We sat on the couch there and did a nice,
Wow.
sit-down interview, so
Wow, see that? Small world, right? I had no idea, but
Exactly.
yeah, that's awesome. And I'm so happy for that. That school there is like one of the best, I mean, in the country. Like there's no other school that's, I mean, besides, like the WWE NXT training center, he's got like 2 or 3 rings in there. It's immaculate, it's clean. There's a promo room you can go in there and practice on your promos, and there's a gym in there, and there's a sauna and everything. So it's really it's awesome there.
Yeah.
I actually got to work for his company, WFA, too. So, which I'm sure I'll be back. Uh, Give me a couple more months after recovery and stuff, and I
Yeah.
look
Look
forward
forward to
to
seeing what happens
seeing him
with you
again.
there.
Right.
Absolutely. And how can fans follow you?
So you can check me out if you haven't already. Kayla Sparks 247. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or X. I'm trying to think of all the other. But yeah, you can check me out social media on there.
And in closing, fast forward many years from now, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
Oh my gosh. I would say I would want to be remembered as someone that never gave up, someone that was had the courage to like chase after her dreams, and despite the setbacks, like you said, and someone that always wanted to put a smile on people's faces, and someone that just you can tell like that they want to make the pro wrestling business better just by having that positive attitude, you know what I mean? And just because it's rare to have that, like, people. That's what I love about like everyone that's come up to me at like WWE and AW is that they always remember me because I'm always smiling. I can't help it. So someone that just always tries to bring like the positive, um to even if, whatever's that's going on with someone's day, I hope I can make their day better.
Well, Kayla, thanks so much for joining us today. For
Thank you,
Kayla
Joe.
Sparks, I'm Joseph Bruen. It's the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.